What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another video. Now, if you're wondering, Ariel, what are you teaching us something today? No, we're covering the Jonbenet Ramsay case, and we can't cover that without going through each and every conspiracy, because I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what happened to this little girl. I don't even, I'll try to start down a path of thinking, okay, maybe this is what happened to her. And then I don't know. I have absolutely no clue. The one thing that I did notice that is not on this chart that I had ChatGPT make me, is the man who actually confessed to killing her. So I find that strange that that didn't make it on here. And I believe that if I lean any which towards way, it would be towards that man's confession. And I believe that's on a Netflix documentary, the most recent. In fact, I know I say this almost, I feel like I say this every other video. This case overwhelms me, and because it is a cold case, not only does it overwhelm me, but the layers of it are so thick and deep that it's intimidating. So when Netflix came out with the newest documentary, I finally was like, okay, let me see what this case is about. I used to ask my mom about it because this was a case that she used to talk about. But I'd always be like, oh yeah, that little pageant girl. I can remember seeing pictures of her. Because this happened, actually, she would be my age. She was born in 1990. She would be just about to turn 35. So let's go over the conspiracies first. So Jonbenet was found dead in her parents' home at 6 years old. And the speculation, first thing, was that the parents did it. And a lot of people would be like, okay, well, why would the parents kill their kid? There was speculation that the mother, that Patsy Ramsay, the mother, was jealous of Jonbenet. There was speculation that the father had some kind of like sex ring and would allow people to do horrible things to her, and it went too far. All of that is pure speculation. No one has been found guilty of doing any of that. Then there was speculation that the brother did it, in which Burke went and sued a bunch of, I think it was news stations. And so we'll just leave that at that. We ain't going to go any further down that. A family insider, somebody from the family did it. Parents were trying to cover it up. The intruder came in. Apparently this house, a lot of people came and went. This house was also very, it was different. It had, it's even hard to fucking talk about. It had a really odd layout. The SA ring, the Illuminati. This one I've never heard of before, but the this one right here, he's still alive, and that it's Katy Perry, and that Katy Perry is Jonbenet. I've never heard of that. Police cover up, and then the MK Ultra. I'm not even sure what the hell that is. It's just weird. This is one of those cases that is just really freaking weird. So let me pull up a picture of little Jonbenet and get the conspiracy chart off of here so we can start. Jonbenet Ramsay was born August 16th of 1990, and she died December 25th, 1996. She was an American child who was killed at the age of 6 in her family home at 755 15th Street in Boulder, Colorado on the night of December 25th, 1996. We're talking Christmas here. Christmas. Her body was found in the house's basement about 7 hours after she had been reported missing. She had sustained a fractured skull, and a garrote was tied around her neck. The autopsy reported that Jonbenet's official cause of death was asphyxia by strangulation, associated with brain trauma. Her death was ruled a homicide. The case generated worldwide public and media interest, in part because her mother, Patsy Ramsay, a former beauty queen, had entered Jonbenet into a series of child beauty pageants. The Boulder police initially suspected that a long handwritten ransom note that was reportedly found in the home had been written by Patsy, and that the note and the appearance of Jonbenet's body had been staged by Patsy and her husband, Jonbenet Ramsay, to cover up the killing. In 1999, the police and district attorney DA both said that Jonbenet's brother, Burke, who was 9 years older at the time, in 1999, the police and district attorney both said that Jonbenet's brother, Burke, who was 9 years old at the time of her death, was not a suspect. Jonbenet's parents gave several televised interviews but resisted police questioning except on their own terms. In 2013, unsealed court documents revealed that a 1999 grand jury recommended filing charges against the Ramsays for permitting the child to be in a threatening situation. John and Patsy were also accused of hindering the prosecution of an unidentified person who had committed the crime of the murder in the first degree and child abuse, resulting in death. However, the DA determined that there was insufficient evidence to pursue a successful indictment. In 2002, a new DA took over the investigation from the police and primarily pursued the theory that an intruder had committed the killing. In 2003, trace DNA taken by Jonbenet's clothes was found to belong to an unknown male. Each family member's DNA had been excluded from this match. The DA sent the Ramsays a letter of apology in 2008, declaring the family was completely cleared by the DNA results. In a 2015 interview, former Boulder Police Chief Mark Beckner said that in his view, the perpetrator was the source of the unidentified DNA found on Jonbenet's clothing. In 2009, the Boulder police took the case back from the DA and reopened the investigation. National and international media coverage of the case focused on Jonbenet's brief beauty pageant career, as well as her parents' wealth and the unusual evidence found in the case, particularly suggestions of sexual abuse. Media reports questioned how the police had handled the investigation and accused various members of the Ramsay family. Ramsay family members and friends have filed defamation suits against several media organizations. The crime is still considered a cold case and remains an open investigation with the Boulder Police Department, with annual updates published on the police department's website. Jonbenet Ramsay was born on August 6, 1990 in Atlanta, Georgia, the younger of two children of Patricia Patsy Ramsay and John Ramsay. She had an older brother named Burke, who was born in 1987. Jonbenet's first name combines her father's first and middle names, and her mother's first name was used as her middle name. She was enrolled in kindergarten at High Peaks Elementary School in Boulder, Colorado. Jonbenet's body was found on December 26, 1996, in her family's Boulder residence. She was buried at St. James Cemetery in Marietta, Georgia on December 31st. Jonbenet was interred next to her half-sister Elizabeth Pash Ramsay, who had died in a car crash nearly 5 years earlier at the age of 22. John Ramsay was a businessman who was the president of an Access Graphics, a computer software company that later became a subsidiary of Lockheed Martin. So we're talking big bucks here. His first marriage ended in divorce in 1978. In 1991, John had moved with Patsy, his second wife, and family to Boulder, where Access Graphics headquarters was located. Patsy Ramsay entered Jonbenet in a various amount of child beauty pageants where she won tons of different types of titles, such as Little Miss Colorado, Colorado State All-Star Kids cover girl, and National Tiny Miss Beauty. Jonbenet's active role in child beauty pageants and Patsy's reported pageant mother behavior were reported by the media after the murder. In 1997, approximately 6 months after Jonbenet's death, the Ramsays moved to a new home in Atlanta after a summer at their vacation retreat in Michigan. Patsy died of ovarian cancer at age 49 in 2006. Scott Gibbons, a neighbor, claimed that around midnight, while looking from his kitchen window, he saw the upper kitchen of the Ramsay residence lit up with dimmed lights. Neighbor Melody Stanton reported that she was awoken shortly after midnight by the sound of a child's scream coming from the Ramsay residence. Patsy Ramsay reported that she found a 2.5-page handwritten ransom note on the kitchen staircase in their home. The note demanded $118,000 for Jonbenet's return. John pointed out to the police first on the scene that the amount was nearly identical to his Christmas bonus of the prior year, which suggested that someone who would have access to that information would be involved in the crime. Investigators looked at several different theories behind the dollar amount demanded, considering employees at Access Graphics who may have known the amount of John's prior bonus. They also considered the possibility that the ransom demand was a reference to Psalm 118 and spoke to religious sources to determine possible relevance. The ransom note appears to echo film dialogue. The films Ruthless People Ransom, Escape from New York Speed, and Dirty Harry are considered to be potential sources. The ransom note was unusually long. The FBI told the police that it was very unusual for such a note to be written at a crime scene. The police believe that the note was staged because it did not have any fingerprints except for Patsy's and the authorities who had handled it, and because it included an unusual use of exclamation marks and initialisms. The note and a practice draft were written with a pen and notepad from the Ramsay home. According to the CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, reported there were indications that the author of the ransom note is Patricia Ramsay. However, the evidence fell short of a definite conclusion. Michael Baden, a board-certified forensic pathologist who also had consulted with both sides of the case, said he had never seen a note like it in his 60-year experience, and he did not think it was written by an outside stranger. A federal court ruled it highly unlikely that Patsy wrote the note, citing 6 certified handwriting experts. The court laminated the existence of self-proclaimed experts without credentials trying to enter the case by accusing Patsy without scientific basis. Now, let's read the note.
Mr. Ramsay, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We do respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 will be in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attached to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on the delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence an earlier pickup for your daughter. Any deviation of my instructions will result in immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The 2 gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices. If any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement, countermeasures, and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around. So don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It is up to you now, John. Victory. SBTC.
The only people known to be in the house on the night of Jonbenet's death were her immediate family, Patsy and John Ramsay, and their son, Burke. The ransom note contained specific instructions against contacting police and friends, but Patsy telephoned the police at 5:52 a.m. MST. She also called family and friends. 2 police officers responded to the 911 call and arrived at the Ramsay home within 3 minutes. They conducted a cursory search of the house, but did not find any sign of forced entry. Officer Rick French went to the basement and came to a door that was secured by an additional wooden latch at the top of the door frame. He paused for a moment in front of the door, but walked away without opening it. French later explained that he was looking for an exit route used by the kidnapper since the wooden latch was holding the door closed from inside the house. The kidnapper could not have used this door and then latched it from the inside, ruling this was out as a possible exit. Jonbenet's body was later found behind that door. With Jonbenet still missing, John made arrangements to pay the ransom. A forensics team was dispatched to the house. The team initially believed that the child had been kidnapped and Jonbenet's bedroom was the only room in the house that had been cordoned off to prevent contamination. No precautions were taken to prevent contamination of evidence in the rest of the house. Meanwhile, friends, victim, advocates, and the Ramsay family's minister arrived at the home to show support. Visitors picked up and cleaned surfaces in the kitchen, possibly destroying evidence. Boulder detective Lisa Arndt arrived at around 8 a.m. MST in anticipation of receiving further instructions by the kidnappers, but there was never an attempt by anyone to claim the money. At 1 p.m. MST, Detective Arndt asked John Ramsay and Fleet White, a family friend, to search the house to see if anything seemed amiss. They started their search in the basement. John opened the latch door, which Officer French had overlooked. His daughter's body lay in one of the rooms. Jonbenet's mouth was covered with duct tape. A nylon cord was around her wrist and neck, and her torso was covered by a white blanket. John picked up her body and rushed upstairs. When Jonbenet was moved, the crime scene was further contaminated. A critical forensic evidence was disturbed for the returning forensics team. Each of the Ramsays provided handwriting, blood, and hair samples to the police. John and Patsy participated in a preliminary interview for more than 2 hours, and Burke was also interviewed within the first couple of weeks following Jonbenet's death. The autopsy revealed that Jonbenet was killed by strangulation and a skull fracture. The official cause of death was asphyxia by strangulation associated with brain trauma. There was no evidence of conventional rape, although sexual assault could not be ruled out. Although no semen was found, there was evidence that there had been a vaginal injury. Evidence also suggested that the paintbrush used in the garrote was also used for sexual assault. At the time of the autopsy, the pathologist recorded that it appeared her vaginal area had been wiped with a cloth. Her death was ruled a homicide. A garrote that was made from a length of nylon cord and the broken handle of a paintbrush was tied around Jonbenet's neck and had apparently been used to strangle her. Part of the bristle end of the paintbrush was found in a tub containing Patsy's art supplies, but the bottom third of it was never found despite extensive search of the house by the police in subsequent days. The autopsy revealed a vegetable or fruit material which may represent pineapple, which Jonbenet had eaten a few hours before her death. Photographs of the home taken on the day when Jonbenet's body was found show a bowl of pineapple on the kitchen table with a spoon in it. However, neither John nor Patsy said they remembered putting the bowl on the table or feeding pineapple to Jonbenet. Police reported that they found Patsy Ramsay's fingerprints on that bowl. In December of 2003, forensic investigators extracted enough material from a mixed blood sample found on Jonbenet's underwear to establish a DNA profile. That DNA belonged to an unknown male person, excluded the DNA of the Ramsays. The DNA was submitted to the FBI's Combined DNA Index, CODIS, a database containing more than 1.6 million DNA profiles, but the sample did not match any profile in the database. In October of 2016, a report said that the new forensic analysis with more sensitive techniques revealed that the original DNA contained genetic markers from 2 individuals other than Jonbenet. A. James Kohler, who was a lead investigator for the DA's office, said that there were additional traces of male DNA found on the cord and the paintbrush that Boulder District Attorney Mary Lacey did not mention, and that there were 6 separate DNA samples belonging to unknown individuals that were found by the test. Former FBI profiler Candace DeLong believes that the DNA having shown up identically in several different places on multiple surfaces belongs to the killer. Former Adams County, Colorado District Attorney Bob Grant, who has assisted the Boulder DA's office on the case for many years, also believes that the DNA evidence is significant, saying that any resolution of the case would have to explain how the DNA showed up on several pieces of Jonbenet's clothing. Forensic pathologist Michael Batten said trace amounts of DNA can get on places and clothing from all different non-suspicious means. There is no forensic evidence to show that this is a stranger murder. Experts, media commentators, and the Ramsays have identified potential suspects in this case. Boulder police initially focused almost exclusively upon John and Patsy, but by October 1997 had over 1,600 people in their index of persons of interest for the case. Errors that were made in the initial investigation complicated the resolution of the investigation and applicable theory. Those errors included loss and contamination of evidence, lack of experience and technical staff on the investigation, evidence shared with the Ramsays, and delayed informal interviews with the parents. Other issues include misleading information intentionally leaked by Boulder police in hopes of creating public pressures on John and Patsy Ramsay to better cooperate with police interview requests, which contributed to the intense media attention surrounding the family. Lou Smith was a detective who came out of retirement in early 1997 to assist the Boulder County District Attorney's Office with this case. In May 1998, he presented his findings to the Boulder Police with other staff members of the DA's office, concluding that the evidence pointed away from the Ramsays. They were unable to successfully challenge the police department's belief that the Ramsays were guilty. The DA's office sought to take control of the investigation. Due to the animosity between the police and the DA's office and the pressure to obtain a conviction, Colorado Governor Roy Romer interceded and named Michael Cain as a special prosecutor to initiate a grand jury. 2 of the lead investigators in the case had opposing views. Both Lou Smith and Steve Thomas ultimately resigned, Smith because he believed that the investigation had incompetently overlooked the intruder hypotheses, and Thomas because he believed the DA's office had interfered and failed to support his hypotheses of this case. A grand jury was convened beginning September 15, 1998, to consider indicting the Ramsays for charges relating to the case. In 1999, the grand jury returned a true bill to charge the Ramsays with placing the child at risk in a way that led to her death, based on the probable cause standard applied in such grand jury proceedings. Boulder County District Attorney Alex Hunter did not prosecute them because he did not believe that they could meet the higher standard of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt that is required for a criminal conviction. Mary Lacey, the next Boulder County District Attorney, took over the investigation from the police on December 26, 2002. In April of 2003, she agreed with a federal judge who sat on a 2002 libel case that evidence in the suit is more consistent with a theory that an intruder murdered Jonbenet than it was with a theory that Mrs. Ramsay did. On July 9, 2008, the Boulder District Attorney's Office announced that as a result of newly developed DNA sampling and testing techniques, touch DNA analysis, the Ramsay family members were excluded as suspects in the case. Lacey publicly exonerated the Ramsays. On February 2nd, 2009, Boulder Police Chief Mark Beckner announced that Stan Garnett, the new Boulder County District Attorney, was turning the case over to his agency and that his team would resume investigating it. Garnett found the statute of limitations for the crimes identified in the 1999 grand jury true bill had expired and did not pursue review of the case against the Ramsays. In October of 2010, the Boulder police reopened the cold case. New interviews were conducted following a fresh inquiry by a committee that included state and federal investigators. Police were expected to use the latest DNA technology in their investigation. There was no new information gleaned from those interviews. It was reported in September of 2016 that the investigation into Jonbenet's death continues to be an active homicide case per Boulder Police Chief Greg Testa. In 2015, Beckner disagreed with exonerating the Ramsays, stating exonerating anyone based on a small piece of evidence that has not yet been proved to even be connected to the crime is absurd. He also stated that the unknown DNA from Jonbenet's clothing has got to be the focus of the investigation at this point in time, and that until one can prove otherwise, the suspect is the donator of the unknown DNA. In 2016, Gordon Combs, a former investigator for the Boulder County District Attorney's Office, also questioned total absolution of the Ramsays, stating, "We all shed DNA all the time within ourselves. It can be deposited anywhere at any time for various reasons. To clear somebody just on the premise of touch DNA, especially when you have a situation where the crime scene wasn't secure at the beginning, really is a stretch." Stephen E. Pitt, a forensic psychiatrist hired by Boulder authorities, said Lacey's public exoneration of the Ramsays was a big slap in the face of Chief Beckner and the core group of the detectives who had been working on this case for years. So now we're going to get into the theories, kind of like what we talked about at the beginning when I first started this video. And we're going to go a little bit into depth. I'm not sure. I haven't read over these documents. So there are two primary theories about Jonbenet's death and the family member theory. Jonbenet was killed by one or more family members, and the intruder theory, an intruder committed the crime. The family member theory, Boulder police initially concentrated almost exclusively upon Jonbenet's parents. According to Greg McCary, a retired FBI profiler, statistically, it is a 12-to-1 probability that it's a family member or a caregiver who is involved in a homicide of a child. The police saw no evidence of a forced entry, but they did see an evidence of staging of the scene, such as a ransom note. They did not find the Ramsays cooperative in helping solve the case. The Ramsays had said that their reluctance was due to their fear that there would not be a full investigation for the intruders, and that they would be hastily selected as the key suspects in the case, according to the Daily Camera. John Edward Douglas, a former FBI special agent and a criminal profiler, contends that John and Patsy Ramsay did not kill their daughter. He was critical of the way the media and the public viewed the case. Many crimes are tried in the court of public opinion long before they reach a court of law. But I know of no other case in which the majority of people have decided the solution based on statistics. I know of no other case in which the public substantially believes what has been reported in the tabloids. I know of no other case in which the mainline media have let the tabloids take the lead and then reported on their reporting. And I know of no other case in which largely respectable television programs have so tried to outdo each other in sensationalism. One theory is that Patsy struck Jonbenet in a fit of rage after a bedwetting episode and strangled her to cover up what had happened after mistakenly thinking she was already dead. However, Patsy did not have a known history of uncontrolled anger. Jonbenet's brother Burke Ramsay later said, "We didn't get spanked. Nothing of that sort, nothing close, nothing near laying a finger on us, let alone killing your child." Theoretically, the strangulation could have been a red herring to conceal other elements of the assault and killing. Burke, who was 9 years old at the time of Jonbenet's death, was interviewed by investigators at least 3 times. The interviews did not raise any concerns. A review by a child psychologist stated that it appeared that the Ramsays had a healthy, caring family and relationships with one another. In 1998, Boulder Police Chief Mark Beckner said that during an interview with a news reporter that Burke was not involved in the killing of his sister. In May 1999, the Boulder County District Attorney's Office reiterated that Burke was not a suspect. The investigators had never considered him a suspect. The Ramsays offered a $100,000 reward in a newspaper ad dated April 27, 1997, 3 days later, more than 4 months after the body of their daughter was found. They submitted for the first time to separate formal interviews at the Boulder County Justice Center. In 1999, Colorado Governor Bill Owens spoke out, telling the Ramsay couple to quit hiding behind their attorneys, quit hiding behind their PR firm. A Colorado grand jury voted in 1999 to indict the parents. The indictment cited 2 counts each of child abuse and said the parents did unlawfully, knowingly, recklessly, and feloniously permit a child to be unreasonably placed in a situation that posed a threat of injury to a child's life or health, which resulted in the death of Jonbenet Ramsay, a child under the age of 16. Among the experts who testified in the case were DNA specialist Barry Scheck and forensic expert Henry Lee. On October 13, 1999, District Attorney Alex Hunter refused to sign the indictment, saying that the evidence was insufficient for prosecution. The public thought that the grand jury investigation had been inconclusive. In 2002, the statute of limitations on the grand jury's charges expired. The grand jury's vote to indict was not revealed publicly until October 25th of 2013, which previously sealed court documents were released. The case of Jonbenet Ramsay, a show broadcast on CBS on September 18th and 19th, 2016, used a group of experts to evaluate the evidence. The group theorized that Burke hit his sister in the head with a heavy object, possibly a flashlight, after she stole a piece of pineapple from his bowl. Perhaps not intending to kill her, they suggested that the ransom letter was an attempt to cover up the circumstances of Jonbenet's death. On behalf of Burke Ramsay, his counsel filed defamation lawsuits against CBS, the producers of the program, and several of its participants based on many of its claims. Then there's the intruder theory. The police and the prosecutors followed leads for intruders, partly due to the unidentified boot marks left in the basement room where Jonbenet's body was found. Early persons of interest included neighbor Bill McReynolds, Chris Wolf, a local reporter whose then girlfriend reported him as a suspect, family housekeeper Linda Hoffman Pugh, and a man named Michael Helgoth, who died in an apparent suicide shortly after Jonbenet's death. Hundreds of DNA tests were performed to find a match to the DNA recovered during her autopsy. In a 2003 defamation lawsuit related to the case Wolf versus Ramsay, involving the Ramsays publicly identifying an early suspect in the case, Judge Julie E. Carnes wrote, "There is virtually no evidence to support Wolf's theory that the Ramsays murdered their child, but abundant evidence to support their belief that an intruder entered their home at some point during the night of December 25th, 1996, and killed their daughter." Lou Smith, a detective in the case, assessed the evidence and concluded that an intruder had committed the crime. On the night Jonbenet was killed, there had been 2 windows that were left slightly open to allow for electrical cords from the outside Christmas lights to pass through, a broken basement window, and 1 unlocked door. Smith's theory was that someone entered the Ramsay home through the broken basement window. Critics have questioned this theory because there was an intact cobweb in the basement window. The steel grate that covered the window also had undisturbed cobwebs, and the foliage around the grate had been undisturbed. There were also cobwebs in the tracks of various windows, and dust and debris were on some sills. Smith believed that an intruder subdued Jonbenet using a stun gun and took her down to the basement. Jonbenet was killed and a ransom note was left, Smith's theory was supported by former FBI agent Johnny Douglas, who had been hired by the Ramsay family. Believing that the Ramsays were innocent, Smith resigned from the investigation on September 20th, 1998, 5 days after the grand jury was convened against the Ramsays. While no longer an official investigator on the case, Smith continued to work on this case until his death in 2010. Now, we're going to get to the Carr confession. John Mark Carr, and this is I know I said in the beginning that there really wasn't a theory that I truly felt strongly enough to say that's probably what happened. But after watching the documentary on Netflix, this Carr confession, which wasn't presented on that graph that I showed in the beginning of this video, but John Mark Carr was a 41-year-old school teacher and he was arrested in Bangkok, Thailand on August 15th, 2006, following what they call a false confession to murdering Jonbenet. Carr claimed to have drugged, sexually assaulted, and accidentally killed Jonbenet. According to CNN, authorities also said they did not find any evidence linking Carr to this crime. In the confession, Carr had provided only basic facts that were publicly known and failed to provide any additional convincing details. The claim that Jonbenet was drugged cast further doubt on the confession because the autopsy indicated no drugs were found in her body. Furthermore, Carr's DNA did not match DNA found on Jonbenet's body. But his confessions, the recorded confessions, were insane. I mean, I don't know the logic behind somebody who could express themselves in that manner, say those things. I mean, why would you do that? And holy shit, like, he sounds like he truly was in love with Jonbenet. Still to this day, we don't know what happened to Jonbenet. And I don't think that we ever will know what happened to her. No matter what theory you believe, will we ever know the truth? It's one of the cases that I don't think we will. That's all I have for this one. I will link everything that I can find, which will be an enormous amount, in my description box. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.